All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, 7 p.m. We'll call tonight's Conservation Commission meeting to order. My name's Chris Garahan. I'm the chairman of the Conservation Commission. The first item we have on tonight's agenda is the open session citizen concerns. And we have Mr. and Mrs. Joel and Ruth Luna and Linda Jones are here to talk about vernal pools on River Meadow Brook Wildlife Refuge and a possible Conservation Commission contribution to the effort as well. So,
I can actually start that, Mr. Chairman.
You want to talk a little bit first?
Sure.
Okay.
The Runas and Ms. Jones have graciously offered to certify what we're pretty sure are a couple of vernal pools on the River Meadow Brook Wildlife Refuge. I actually have pictures. These were actually taken in March of last year. This is one of the pools. Is located in bordering vegetated wetland in the National Grid easement that everyone
It's in the easement?
It is in the easement, yes. And actually both of them are. So this is the one in the BVW. This is a very small one, but it appears that it is certifiable. I guess we'll find out once the information is submitted to Natural Heritage. I would certainly hope at the very least, certifying vernal pools is always good to do. It's always good to have that in the state database, but on a practical level, I would certainly hope that maybe we could get National Grid to tread a little bit more lightly.
That's what I was
Up in this easement. As you can see, they pretty well clear-cut it. Frankly made kind of a mess out of it, and this is actually priority habitat for Blanding's turtles in particular.
Really?
Yeah.
The Blanding turtle sightings were up at the cemetery.
Well, there must have been
Which is
some or others.
about a mile from here,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
all right.
At some point, someone must have submitted
Right.
a record in this area. So. And National Grid is, they have certain requirements that they're supposed to abide by from Natural Heritage, when they do this sort of work in priority habitat.
Will they need National Grid's permission to go on the easement?
No, I don't think so. This is the Conservation Commission's land.
I understand, but it's not our easement.
But it's still public land. There are certain things that aren't allowed, and actually, that's going to be relevant to one of the hearings coming on later on. But pedestrian access is is here, so
All right.
I'm not worried about
Good,
that.
well, this sounds like a great idea.
Just one more thing. So, I guess what I would like the commission to consider doing is to actually make a contribution. My thought is that we hire Oxbow to do a comprehensive survey of invertebrates in the vernal pool. This actually is a very large vernal pool. It actually goes into the woods. I think there might be quite a diversity of invertebrates out there. So I haven't gotten a proposal from
How
Oxford.
much money?
What percentage of our wildlife refuge would that represent, roughly?
You have a feel for that? The vernal pool is probably, at least half an acre?
No, I just wondered if the scope of work for Oxbow could be our wildlife refuge with special focus on the vernal pool.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
But the Lunas are going to be collecting the information and submitting it to Natural Heritage, so we don't need Oxbow to do that.
Oh, right.
But I would think, yeah.
What are you thinking of for a dollar figure?
I'm thinking it might be $1,000 at most. As I say, I have not gotten a cost estimate from them, and they don't have to do any of the work, actually submitting to Natural Heritage, which generally is a large portion of the cost.
We can take a vote to say not to exceed $1,000.
Okay.
Have the commission take a vote.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear. What is it that we're asking Oxbow to do?
I'm proposing to have them do a comprehensive survey of invertebrates in the pool. The Lunas are going to be looking like at the wood frogs and the salamanders and turtles if they see any. But I mean, vertebrates are a very important, biological component of vernal pools. There may be rare ones out there, and I think we should know about that.
Okay.
And
All
was
right.
Dave suggesting a broader wildlife study of the broader parcel, Dave, or?
For the same price, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, I did.
What the Lunas are gonna do first.
Yeah, let's get some input from Mr. and Ms. Luna.
So I just wanted to add, so the Blandings turtles, we reported, I had them radioed in 2007, and so that's why Blandings is part of this area as well. So presumably they're separate turtles that you're talking
Because
about.
National Heritage validated it last year for the sightings up at the French Cemetery.
Okay, yeah, so that'd be something separate. So when we were doing it, it was ranging from there to the Water District area.
Well,
So
I'm glad
they-
that covers a bigger area.
Yeah, the Blandings,
They're more,
they're more aquatic.
right.
And whereas the wood turtle, they typically have about a mile of brook and they go 1,000 feet off and these ones definitely do that.
Would you avail yourself of any of the work that the zoo did in that area, or is that outside of where you're gonna be looking?
Well, we actually helped them.
I know
get-
you did.
Yeah.
So is
So, I
their
mean, I
pre-work
hear from-
helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I hear from Julie, she did send us
Yep.
the report
Yep.
this past year. So we also were hoping that we'd be able to go out like during the nesting time and just be checking more frequently, and checking a few different areas that way where we know they had been before.
I think it's a good idea.
And then, but I think that David's proposal, I think does sound good, because there really are a lot of things, and we're somewhat rusty on the invertebrate end. We are reviewing it, but they definitely have expertise, and there are things that they are just, I think would be quicker at sizing up, and this is it's more of a sensitive a time of year, that this is a good time of year to do
It's a
it.
great time of year to do it.
Yeah.
You need help,
Huh?
other than the three of you? Or is that enough?
Oh, the three of us, yeah, it actually pays that we're used to working together, because you really have to be quiet out there. If you
Yeah.
make noise, nobody's gonna move, and you're not gonna know they're there.
That's why it's tough to have high school kids. They're noisy.
I don't know, David, can I change the subject slightly, and just, this isn't on your agenda, so I don't want you to discuss it, but if you would discuss it maybe at your next meeting, one of the things that we would like to have addressed is, this whole area is zoned IA, which makes no sense to us. It's rare species habitat for both wood turtle and for Blandings. And so I had thought I'd like to go to the planning board to ask them to consider looking at rezoning, and I realized that I should first make sure that you guys think that's a great idea. But, so if you'd put that on your agenda to discuss that at your next meeting or whatever, then I could
Sure. Yep.
follow up however you want.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right, well, thanks, guys.
Sure.
Sounds great. More comments, questions from the commissioners? We have a motion to approve and support up to $1,000.
Well, and also, we should have a motion to authorize them to conduct the study on our land, just so nobody can question their being there. We had that,
Sounds
we
good.
did have, we've had problems up there before.
Well, and especially, I guess, given that it's a wildlife refuge as
Yeah.
well, that probably would be a good idea.
I have a question, which I guess I said earlier. I'm just thinking, given that the parcel that has the buildings on it probably will be redeveloped at some point, is there anything else a firm like Oxbow could do to help us evaluate the next proposal?
You don't know what the next proposal's gonna be.
Yeah, you don't know.
Well, that's true.
I would say I would say we could play that by ear.
Yeah.
Let's get a baseline now, you know?
Okay.
Get a baseline now.
Yeah, with regard to the proposal that was just withdrawn, that it was sort of my judgment that all we really needed was a peer review of the wetland delineation, but again, we can certainly talk about that more when the next filing comes in.
So are we gonna have an idea, if you hire Oxbow, what the scope of work is gonna be?
Yes, I mean, fairly narrow, just to do the survey of invertebrates, that's all, and write us a report.
Within that area.
Yes, yes.
David, there are some other areas in that region that we mentioned that we were gonna look into if you wanted, that are like right connected with that easement, if you wanted that, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. That maybe there's an additional vernal pool you think might be out there?
At least we wanna check into what that is.
Could you be
We
able?
can get back to you and let you know on that.
Yeah, if you could just mark that on a map.
Sure.
Okay, that might add something to the cost, but,
Well, let's get the most bang for our buck for, you know,
Sure.
from Oxbow.
Yeah, so let's get a motion, we'll get a scope, obviously, you gotta get a scope
yeah.
prepared, show us the scope, right, so we can look at it.
Right.
But, maybe tonight at least, maybe we don't have a scope in front of
So-
us, so maybe we can at least vote to kind of authorize heading to the next step of getting the scope prepared, right?
Sure.
Sure.
To Dave's point, I'll make a motion to authorize the Lunas to go on the property to do this observation.
Second?
Okay, for the purpose of,
For the purpose of
scoping out the vernal
vernal
pools,
pools,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so, motion by Carl, and then seconded by Dave. Any discussion before we vote on that motion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None unanimous, so you're authorized.
Could I ask that that would also extend to the doing the turtle, like, at least through June for the turtle tracking? Like
Yeah,
the
sure.
nesting season and all?
So amended.
So amended. All those in favor? Aye. As amended, good. And then we just need a motion to have David come up with a draft scope of work for us for Oxbow, with the anticipation that it'd be a not to exceed $1,000 amount. But he'd get that prepared for us and could bring it back at our next meeting for us to officially vote the actual scope.
So
So
moved.
moved by Carl,
Second.
seconded by Bill. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And unanimous. All right, good. So we're all set.
Thank
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't they do some out on, where was it? Off of,
All right, good.
High Street,
Um,
down that way.
David, do we have any other open session, citizen concerns or anything right now
No,
that we're about?
Good.
Okay. You folks, are you with anything particular or
they're with the
They-
DPW.
DPW, yeah, that's
Oh.
They are DPW.
DPW? All right, very good.
They
Excellent.
change faces so often, we don't know who they are.
Fooled me, fooled me. Thank you. We want to make sure that you guys were addressed. All right, and that kind of moves us right along then to the
You don't have to,
regulatory
you can if you want
section.
to, but that's up to you.
Yeah. Regulatory section, we have a request for determination of applicability by the town of Chelmsford DPW. Several locations, Christine Clancy, our town of Chelmsford DPW director, is representing the applicants. And do we have like a legal notice for this to put in the record?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187. The Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, March 14th, now March 28th, at 7 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Town of Chelmsford, proposed work within Bank Riverfront area and a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at long list of addresses per the notice. The project entails replacement of culverts. All corrugated metal pipe culverts will be replaced with PVC. Replacement, repair of head walls, removal of accumulated junk, trash, and debris, and vegetation overgrowth blocking stream channels in drainage areas. Also, biannual, spring and fall exercise of the Freeman Lake Emergency Relief Valve. Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much, Carl. And now we'll hear from our DPW.
Hi, I'm Tony Rapucci, the town engineer. Christine couldn't be here. With me is Sheila Joyce, one of our new project engineers. So I just wanted to quickly go over, back in 2019, 2020, DPW had the stormwater management plan done by Weston and Sampson. During that work that they had done, they identified various culverts and various stream areas that needed rehabilitation or reconstruction. About 40% of the total area that they surveyed could be done by stormwater department through DPW. There were other areas on concrete culverts or full structured culverts that we have out to structural analysis this year. We've filed Hoyle and Tanner through the ARPA funding, and that's going to be going on in June. But amongst that 40% to get done, this is where that list in front of you, I believe there's 13 or 14 culverts to be replaced and to bring the standards up. These are either failed concrete reinforced pipe or corrugated metal pipe that have been failed in poor condition and leaving those areas without doing the rehabilitation or the reconstruction of them, it leads to flooding and other issues, along with clearing the streams in other various locations, as was described in the letter. So if anyone has any questions on any of these specific projects, I can answer anything, or Dave, if you would like to add anything along the lines of those.
David, anything?
So Tony, I have the project area up on the screen. So just had a couple of initial questions. So like FY '36 and FY '24, I guess those are the fiscal years you're planning.
So those are identified as culvert replacements to be done in those fiscal years. So the plan by Weston Sampson was a 21-year plan that goes out to fiscal year 40. The highlighted area is just the Deep Brook stream itself. I believe that is number 5 on the list. That was, I think it was page 2 or 5, which is just stream maintenance on Deep Brook. That is from Dunstable Road to Swains Pond. It's routine maintenance, removal of non-native accumulated material. In the report, there was 24-inch trees that had come down across it that we need to get it removed, as well as there was other identified sand areas that are in the stream and overgrowth of the stream, where the stormwater division would be going in and just clearing that out of those materials and not actually trying to go into the stream bed itself. So those other culverts that's not the work that is being called out. It's just the highlighted stream itself to be cleared.
So it's
Or cleaned.
Is it the FY '24 culvert replacements and other work that you'd be doing that are the subject
So
of this?
unfortunately, we are not going with the exact plan. Oh, that's FY24. That'd be for next year. So the ones that you have before you are all from FY21 through FY23.
Oh, okay.
So next year I'll be back at this time, or our stormwater engineer would be back with all the culverts that would be looking to do a replacement at that point.
Okay. My next question is, so I gather some culverts, you're just replacing the pipe, other culverts, you're just repairing or replacing the head wall, and other culverts, you're doing both. So where you're only replacing the pipe, what is involved in that scope of work? Can you just briefly describe that?
So the example would be North Road. So that is where the corrugated metal has rotted out. We're looking to, we did a calculation to make sure that if we downsize the ADS pipe to fit in the existing head wall, would be able to parge around it without actually to affect or take down the head wall that's been existing. This is an attempt to prevent any scouring or any additional change to the flow pattern, as the outer diameter of the plastic pipe is actually matching the corrugated for a slightly larger pipe. But the flow that goes through North Road can be fit for that 24-inch pipe, so bringing the 28-inch to 24-inch is something that stormwater can do, and then they'd just be parging back around the pipe directly after sliding it out. Because it's deteriorated and kind of rotted away on the bottom, be able just to crush and pull it out with some equipment without doing any damage to the head wall itself.
Oh, okay.
So for example, on that one.
So you just basically pull the existing pipe away from the head wall?
Yes.
Yep.
And since we're going to be going across the road, they'll be digging on the backside as well before they get to the head wall, and be able to then crush, and with corrugated metal, the condition that it's in, it should be easy to just pull out with equipment.
So what about in cases where you have to, say, replace the head wall? How does that work?
So in the case that the head wall has to be replaced as well as the pipe, it'd be taking down the head wall in the adjacent area to the pipe to remove it, putting in the new pipe, and then the stormwater division itself would go back and remortar and put the head wall back in around it to better than the existing condition, but try to bring it back to the condition on the original the original design.
So you don't remove the entire head wall?
No, it'd be around the head wall where like stones and everything have been falling out, and it'd be patching and replacing the head wall. We wouldn't be looking to demo the head wall entirely and then trying to remanufacture it essentially.
I see.
That'd be
Okay.
doubling down on the work.
And you talked a little bit about it earlier. The areas where you're clearing the stream of the stuff that's blocking it and obstructing it. I think you said you're not actually going to be doing any digging in the stream bed or in the banks.
In Deep Brook, there was a location that is identified as road sand, I think is how it was noted. And so non-native to it, in which case we'd want to remove that as it's non-native to the stream itself. But
Right.
everything else outside of that specifically called out location
Is that
would just
both
be.
upstream and downstream when you just uncover that?
Could you repeat the question?
Is it both upstream and downstream when you discover the sand? You're cleaning it on both sides of the culvert or just the
Well, so-
upstream side?
So that's not on the culvert, that's on the brook itself.
Yeah.
And so it's just located along the line of the brook where there's discharge of road sand.
Okay.
So it's not next to any culverts, it's just there seemed to be a pocket. My assumption is it would have been in one of the bends where it was being discharged on the left and just kind of collecting, narrowing the stream itself, so that would be the area we would take it out. I
Can we
haven't been out
get,
to
let's
that
get
location.
specific, culvert 25 on Graniteville Road.
I don't know if
not-
that's
it's
one of
not
the
on
ones
here.
on the list.
That's not on our
It
list to be
says
done this
it's
year.
FY 31, but that's all right. I want to understand their logic.
Okay. So
What's
you're
going to be,
asking
what,
why
do you
it's
know what's
FY
going to be
31?
done there? Or do you know why
So
you picked
when
that one?
Weston and Sampson did our stormwater management plan. It's been on the website since I've been here, which is just under a year. I assume it would have been posted back since October 2020.
Who determined the priority?
So Weston and Sampson, when they did their list, they had a risk factor associated with all of the culvert, stream cleaning, and associated work that they did, walking through, identifying it. They then gave a risk factor to every one of the segments that they did. That then built out that list down to 2041, I believe.
And you don't know if the impact list included the impact on conservation land, do you?
I'd have to look into that for the
Gentlemen,
impact on the
what I'm
impact
talking
list.
about is the site where there's a catch basin on Graniteville that dumps sand into the upper part of our reservation.
Crooked Spring Reservation.
Crooked
right, Dave?
Spring.
We've been asking for years that sand be removed, that a new kind of catch basin be put in, because the sand is destroying the wetland area there.
And it was at
But
road
it's not
sand?
on the priority until 31. So it's not for 8 years.
We do no longer sand our roads or anything. It is all done with
I
salt and
understand, but
brine.
until you've seen it, that effectively has ruined Crooked Spring Reservation, that
That's
area.
I can take a look at it during this
I
week.
doubt that would have been one of their priorities. Now, I'm not being facetious, but I'm sure they're more interested in the impact on people and the
But to
organization.
Dave's point, that'd definitely be a real high priority for all of us in the commission.
And that's
That's
culvert, you said 31?
It is
20?
I think it's 25.
25, culvert replacement.
Graniteville Road, and that's kind of
It's
all the sand's going into Crooked Spring
between
Reservation.
Moccasin and
Yeah,
Castlewood.
Castlewood.
But even though the roads are no longer being sanded, that sounds like it might be a good candidate location for a new catch basin. Maybe that's something.
I can definitely look into that for you, yeah.
no, that'd be great, Tony, if you
And
could do that.
at the same time, you should look at Castlewood, because it also, there is a pipe that comes into the Crooked Spring, I call it the lagoon, and it's a pipe coming right into the
Right, there's a
into the
catch basin
water.
at the top of Castlewood that flows the water from that hill directly into Crooked Spring
I don't have a
Pond.
number, but I'll see
Into what,
if I can
and
find it.
that's been there for years. Been there since probably Castlewood was built.
Okay. You can definitely look into that.
It's a very, very odd situation.
And-
So
out of the soil.
Weston and Sampson set the priorities. Did you guys have any say in what the priority? Or did
I
you
wasn't
take-
here in
you-
2020
okay, so-
to be able to answer that
So as far as you
question.
know, we took their priorities and didn't,
Would have
not saying
assumed
they're
that
wrong,
we
but
would
we
have had
didn't test them
some,
with what we know.
if anyone was on the board in 2020, you would know if they brought it to conservation or whether that was just kept
I
in-house
remember
through
back then,
DPW.
each project was being approved on a one-off basis.
Okay.
Remember?
I wasn't here in 2020.
Yeah, we never could have, we would approve 1 year at a time, then the state said you gotta approve one project at a time.
Yep.
Finally, now you're giving
This is
us,
progress.
you're doing a longer range plan, which makes sense.
Yeah. David, back to you, though.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Tony, let me know if I can be of any help with those two areas that commission members have just mentioned.
Sure.
So getting back to the clearing of the stream, so there's no plans or intention to go into the natural stream bed or bank or
No. Nope.
something like that? Okay. Then, I guess just then the next thing to talk about, and I have it up on the screen, is testing of the emergency valve.
Yes, so that is
man,
done
it's
by our highway department in the spring and in the fall. It's the highway superintendent and generally the foreman that go out there. They will turn the valve. My understanding, it's a butterfly valve. They don't open it fully. They just open it enough so they do a quarter flow, a half flow. Once the pipe is at full flow, they run it for a little bit and then they shut it down. It's not where they're not trying to maximize or open the valve or try to risk the valve in any means or manner on that.
It's just to keep it.
It's just in case we need it. It needs to be exercised every couple of months, 6 months or so.
So that's the main concern is that if it's left open too long or it's discharging at too high a rate, that there'll be erosion. So and we don't want that. But if you look up on the screen, so is it located way down there?
Yes.
So I mean, how do we get down there if I want to take a look at it?
I don't have any advice for that.
You jump into Crystal Lake and you swim over to it. This is what he used to do as a kid.
No, I don't think I want to do that.
You can go down the hill.
If it's something
Okay.
where when that work gets scheduled, you can reach out to you so that way you can be present when they are doing it so you could see what the flow rate is or the condition where it's being discharged.
There's a better, the other end of it, I think, is a better view, David. It's the sluice gate, I think, may be on the other end of it. And you
well,
can
I-
stand right there and see it.
On the left side of that, there's
Yeah.
a trail that goes right down
Yeah.
the
Okay.
hill.
But it looks like.
But it is generally fenced off behind that area to try to actually get around to get into there.
But I mean, do you have to actually go down at the base of the wall here?
You can go down the left side and stand near the wall and look over.
Not to exercise the valve. I mean, the valve is buried in that box. We have a 16-foot wrench
Yeah.
to get down to it to then exercise it to open the valve. And then they have someone that's just looking over to see the flow coming through the pipe.
Okay.
There's no one actually gets physically down there. I wouldn't recommend it if we're going to try exercising the valve to send anyone over there.
They might get swept
Helpful.
down.
Yeah, that's
No volunteers, no
yeah.
volunteers.
I understand that much better.
But if you can let David know, give him a heads up that when it's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see
Well,
that.
I'd actually, what I'm going to recommend, Mr. Chairman, is that the hearing be continued pending doing site visits. I'd like to do site visits of all the proposed locations.
For this next year, you mean? For
Yes,
fiscal-
yes.
yeah.
I think, based on what Tony has said, based on the scope of work, I think that in theory, they can all be negative determinations, because the footprint isn't being increased expanded into any wetland resource areas. I would just like to visit each site, just see if there anything that might be a particular concern that hasn't been mentioned tonight. So what I will plan to do is I will get in touch with Dennis, because that's what Courtney suggested, is that I go out with Dennis.
I did touch base with him today. He said just let him know when
Okay.
you want to head out there. He'd be able to find time.
So I think sometime next week.
Okay.
I'll arrange that with him. Hopefully, we can do them all in one day, two at most. And again, hopefully I won't see anything that concerns me, and they can be all negative determinations. And so we'll just have to see.
It sounds
how
like a
that
reasonable
goes.
request, David, Anybody else here? Quick questions before we, kind of continue to our next meeting? Sounds good?
I just had a
Peter,
comment.
Peter.
This is more of a comment for the commission to think about, is the fact that a couple of these streams are on the new state biomap 2 of, help me out, David, it's called, what do they call it, priority habitat?
Yeah, I think it's actually Biomap 3.
Yeah, so,
Biomap, it's critical natural landscape.
yeah.
I think it's critical habitat.
Yeah, and I was thinking like fish, and so that, and then also there are the stream crossing standards in the Wetland Protection Act, which, David, helped me out, I don't think, well, they apply, but the term is maximum extent.
Right, for
Practicable, is that the right
repair,
phrase?
replacement, it's to comply with the stream crossing standards to the maximum practicable extent.
Is it the town's prerogative to determine whether the new culvert standards will be met? Isn't there, it's an economic decision. If you don't think
Right.
it's economically feasible, you can pass on it. But if it is economically feasible, you would adopt it?
Part of the reason that
I don't know how you
it's a
would go
20-year
through-
plan is it's over $3.5 million with a $100,000 to $150,000 budget associated with it each year.
So you don't think you can apply to it at all?
There are certain things that we won't be able
Yeah.
to fund, and some of the projects would then kind of just get halted and stopped, and it would increase the burden on the town
Do
to
you
try
have
to get those
Do you
completed.
have to show the state that you economically can't abide by the new standard? Do you have to tell them somehow that it's not doable?
We have not at this time.
Oh, so there's no requirement to, okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I can look into that, though.
No, I mean, I don't want you to get in trouble by not doing something that they think you should do,
Sure.
or vice versa.
Yeah, Dave, excuse me, my understanding, I just went to a class on this, is that that is kind of a gray area, right? What is the maximum extent practicable? And you guys have a budget.
Right.
And a plan, so like I think it would be easy to argue, we're just replacing the liner, not the whole head wall, so it's not practicable. But to Dave's point, what I heard is the state has actually got a task force trying to put some clear structure around Dave's question. What does that mean, maximum extent practicable? So I don't know the right answer, whether there's a problem with the state or not in letting them know, but I do know they're taking a hard look, because it is a huge gray area.
And that is something that with the culvert assessment that we are having done
Yeah.
for the other culverts, that is something where funding is going to be an issue. But having those assessed and having the structural analysis done, we can then pursue grants.
Right.
And that way we wouldn't be able to, cost might not be a factor if we can then pursue grants to try to get that work done. And that way we can tie it into our master plan that we have established.
Right, and I think there's a lot more to it than this, but the way I've been thinking about it is you want fish to be able to go by. So one thought I had, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this, I'll defer to you guys or your consultant, but one thought I had is maybe it's not practicable to meet all these stream crossing standards, which include different substrate in the bottom of the channel and a whole bunch of stuff. But I was just curious if any of these culverts could be adjusted somehow so that the water flow was continuous for fish to migrate, because I think that's one reason why these streams are on that priority list, because they're tributaries to the Concord and Merrimack River.
So they are. I know looking at the Biomap 2 online and getting the Biomap 3 GIS, when we overlay it onto the River Meadow Brook Tuttle Road culvert replacement, we're actually not in that zone, even though we're on River Meadow Brook, that we're not actually within the zone of that area. And I can take a double check on it, but I believe I looked at that overlay with relation to all of these culverts, and outside of the Deep Brook, which is the entire majority of it, but we're not doing any work in the stream. We're just removing obstacles and anything that's fallen into the stream and things of that nature.
Right.
We're not doing any work that is actually within that labeled area,
Yeah.
to my knowledge.
Yeah, and frankly, I brought this up because this is a long-term program, and it's something your consultants could maybe think about for the next round, if you're so inclined. That
Sure.
was really my
Definitely
point.
look into it.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
just-
you.
I could just add to that. So in my experience, practicable has always included cost as a factor. Certainly no doubt about that.
Right.
I think maybe probably for future reference from a permitting standpoint, if any of the stream crossings in town were going to be upgraded to comply with the stream crossing standards, from a permitting perspective, the right way to do it would be what's called an ecological restoration limited project. And there's actually a separate notice of intent form for that. I don't know if there would be any grant money for those kinds of projects in particular, and not all crossings are going to be suitable for that. I mean, fish obviously aren't going to go back and forth in an intermittent stream, so any sort of crossings that would be suitable for that would first have to be identified, obviously, and that may really cut down the number a great deal. And then there's there are certain specific things for an ecological restoration limited project. There are certain specific goals and objectives that need to be met, need to be proposed, and need to be met. And with an eye or a thought toward, well, how do you measure success? What is it that you're really trying to accomplish specifically in with this kind of a project? Yeah, certainly one example is facilitating fish, going up and downstream. I mean, there are certainly others
Okay.
as well. So
That's great.
And I
Just a
think,
little bit of a heads up for the future.
Dave, do you want to continue this to the 11th?
Yes.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your list, but with the lake, there's a gate that feeds the canal, that feeds the lake?
Yes.
Who exercises that gate valve?
You know the one we're talking about?
I have heard of it, but I don't know
Haven't
the
seen
answer
it.
to that.
If you get on into
Over
Wilson
there,
Drive,
so you can get those
Wilson
lights.
Wilson Lane?
Yeah,
Lane.
I don't know the answer. I'll look into that for you
Yeah,
and see if I can get
there's
an
a gate
answer.
there with
It
a-
looks
you
like
go.
it has
There you
been
go.
exercised
Thank you,
in the
sir.
past, maybe not annually, but I mean, it's not rusted.
No,
So-
it's not rusted, but
And it diverts it was a man-made channel. And
that's what feeds the lake.
and that gate directs the water either into the man-made channel or into the stream.
Well, and there's the question about whether the town owns that valve, the town may, and if we end up buying the abutting property,
It'll be on our land.
it may be. I think that would be a good time to do a survey to establish that one way or the other.
But I'll certainly look into it between- yeah.
You'll know what I'm talking about.
Not a problem.
Be happy
Peter,
to.
you had something?
I just want to make a comment. Tony, you said something very important, and you said it quickly, so I just want to throw it back on the table for the future. There are state grants for culvert replacements, and I think Tony knows about this, or some of it, we're starting to learn. So I'm kind of thinking, maybe down the road, there'd be a way to get a state grant to cover the additional cost on a certain priority culvert or two, however you figure that out. So I just file that away. It's something I have a personal interest in, and maybe we could find some money in some of the out years to do some other things beyond what the town normally would consider practicable. So just a thought, but you
Yeah,
mentioned
sounds
that.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, Tony, I think this is a good presentation. We got some questions and input. Sounds like what we need is a motion to continue to our next meeting, which is Tuesday, April 11. And that'll give our agent a chance to get out there with you and take a look at the sites. And
I move we continue the hearing on the request for applicability for DPW for their multi-year culvert stream maintenance project to April 11th.
motion by Dave,
Second.
second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? None unanimous. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. You guys have a good
Tony,
one.
thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mark, they're not rebuilding your culvert. They're just cleaning it out. Remember I told you they're gonna rebuild that when it was,
Yeah, you did say that. I was looking on the list that it
no,
wasn't
it's
on the
just, it's
list.
just to clean it out.
Well, it could be 30 years out, though.
No, it's this year.
1-104 Turnpike Road, is that,
24,
what's
maybe.
going on with that? Continued again?
Yeah, I'll give a brief update on that first. I'm not sure where this one is going. So the engineers from Howard Stein Hudson wrote me, give me an update. First of all, they need a contract amendment because they've run out of money in the budget for this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do the compensatory flood storage in the location they've proposed. That, I guess, National Grid's requirements or their criteria for work in their right-of-way, it looks like it's just going to be too tight. So it doesn't look like that's going to work out. So it's a matter of now, I think, identifying another area in very close by in that watershed where the compensatory flood storage could be done, and I think that's going to be a real challenge. And frankly, I'm not sure who's working on doing that. The engineers have identified a couple of alternative sites. One of them being just north on River Neck Road of the intersection there, the three-way intersection. But that's Water District land. I don't think that that's something that the Water District is going to allow on their property. So this may ultimately have to be left out of the project. And I'm not sure how DEP is going to look at that, but if there's just no place to do it, there's no place to do it. And so I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but it may ultimately be issuing an order of conditions that does not require compensatory flood storage. So but, you know, at this point, I would say let's continue it for another 6 months.
All right. All right.
In fact, do that 6 months, or do you want to do it month to month?
I don't think we're gonna know really much of anything for another 6 months, because, again, it needs a contract amendment. I don't know where that money's gonna come from. So maybe 3 months, we can do another 3 months.
As opposed to withdrawing the application and having to start all
Yeah,
over again?
yeah, I
All
don't,
right, I move we continue the hearing on Town of Chelmsford 101 to 104 Turnpike Road until our second meeting in,
July.
or our meeting, we may only have one, but second meeting in July of 2023.
June?
July.
July.
that'd be 4 months.
April,
4 months, okay.
yeah. Well, I figure it's the 1st of April, so.
Yeah. Okay, motion by Dave. We get a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, a mark on the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right. Thanks. So that's that one?
Yeah, so on the next one, I think everyone knows the story on that one. That notice of intent has been withdrawn, so just a matter of closing the hearing, voting to close the hearing.
All right, so we have a motion then to close the hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by, who's it, Carl? No, Mark?
Bill.
Bill, oh, sorry. I was looking the wrong way. Well, I was looking down this way, and then it was like, and I heard a voice, but anyway. You know?
I'm hearing voices? Is that
That-
what you said?
Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right, let's see, where were we here? So any discussion?
On regulatory matters, did you look at 225 Littleton Road?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I promise I
Well,
will.
we got to vote first. So all those in favor of the motion before us?
I'm sorry.
Aye, okay, and none opposed, so unanimous, so that carries, all right? So that takes us through the regulatory hearings, okay?
So just getting back to what Dave,
Dave's point.
but I do pass by there every day, very closely, and I have looked at it from the road.
There are 3 oil trucks
About 8 feet
at
from the
that
water.
little,
Yeah.
that
Or,
little
yeah,
small
Well, that's-
business
Yeah, that's at
called,
Bill Insurance Company.
yeah, right.
So does anyone know, is that business occupied now?
I don't think there's anyone in the building.
No one in there?
I haven't seen any signs on the building or activity in the building. I've just seen the 3 trucks.
Yeah, they got the sign.
Allied,
blocked
was it
there.
Allied Oil? Is that the name of it? Yeah.
Well, just for the heck of it, I'll stop and knock on the door, see if anyone's there. If that's unsuccessful, I'll write to the owners on a separate, but not entirely unrelated matter, that at the site on 110 across from the bank where there's a violation, that wetland flagging has started. There are flags out there,
Good.
so that has started.
Can I bring up one thing about the 102 Boston Road? Is that Lumberyard, anything?
They have sent me the RDA finally. So I haven't had a chance to review it, but that will be on for the next meeting. That hearing will be on, so better late than never. It's been like pulling teeth.
Good for you, Mark.
Seems no urgency there, huh?
Not on their part, that's for sure. I mean, I've done my best to try and pester them. I think it's a matter of doing a site visit. Last time I was out there, there were some concerns with erosion that I think now is the time to get those addressed, but we'll do that when they actually file. I mean, during the course of the hearing.
They have filed it.
They have filed. I have gotten the RDA.
All right, I think this brings us along our agenda now to the update on the tree master plan. All right, Peter?
Yes, so the request for some help from NIMCOG was not accepted, which was not surprising because it was a little bit out of their wheelhouse. So we're looking around for another funding source, but also kind of related. I guess I can deviate a little bit. I'm working on what's called an MVP grant bear with me for a second, to put together for the town something called a sustainability guidance for developers and homeowners, since nobody really knows, I mean, sustainability, what is that, right? So there are something called, they're called low impact development guidelines. And I can get into a lot of detail, but it's with an outside consultant who's writing the proposal. And one of the things we're going to include is a few pieces of what we wanted to do on the tree master plan, but not the full boat. Then the other half of that is there are some other funding sources that we're looking at to try to get that done. So I'm not giving up.
Peter, what is a tree master plan?
It's pretty simple. It's the role and responsibility of different people in town that have responsibility for trees, primarily public. And that includes, the tree warden and National Grid and whatnot. The second, and Dave and I have talked about this, we haven't presented it to the committee, but the second thing would be some specific guidelines on things like survivability of species, planting guidelines, and some other things that could be used by this commission, potentially, for orders or guidance. And the third thing was trying to tie it in with sustainability stuff, things like this tree canopy measurement method, to try to be able to get data to advise everybody, including the selectmen, whether the tree canopy is going up or down. And then the last piece, and nobody really wants to talk about this, was should the town be considering any sort of private land tree rules or ordinance? Some towns have done that, others don't. I'm not really sure that would fly in this town, but that would be part of an overall tree management
And you
plan.
guys don't see it as part of the master plan that the planning board develops?
Well, it could be rolled into that, and Carl has invited me to help with that master plan, I gather. That's still a good offer, and that might be another way to
Well,
get at it.
there's two. There's an open space and recreation
That's right.
master plan, but I don't think that lends itself to that.
Probably not, yeah.
It's more it's more the
Yeah.
master plan that the planning board does.
Yeah. But again, for a better answer to your question, there's a few more pieces. Some of the towns in the Boston area have been spending, $100 or $200 on what they're calling an urban forestry master plan. Urban. And Brookline's done one, Arlington done one. You can find these online. And they get pretty deep into climate and hotspot analysis and a lot of stuff that might be fun, but I'm not sure, we really need that to move things forward. But that's the nature of some of these other funding sources that a couple of us are trying to identify. My personal view is we just want to talk to everybody in town, everybody in town government and town departments, and collect what everybody is thinking. And take a look at some other communities for best practices and put something together for comment. That's really the simple version, which I don't think we need an outside consultant and big study dollars, but a couple of us would have to spend a bit of time
How long is
doing
it gonna take?
To find a grant or to do the study?
Do the study?
6 months,
Okay.
30, 40 grand, I'm guessing, something like that. But there are plenty of experts in consulting firms that do both the planning and the
Oh,
tree
I'm sure you
stuff,
can
so
find
that's
anyone
easy
who'll
to
spend
find.
40 grand.
Well, that's the key. I mean, Dave, I'm thinking if we can find some grant that the town isn't chasing already and get the consultant to help us figure out how to win it, what's wrong with that? I think the alternative is people on this committee, we can all go spend
I just think
time doing
we
it.
need to walk before we run, that's all.
Have you
Do you have
talked
a
to the
sug-
UMass Lowell Extension Project?
Pardon me?
Have you talked to anybody on the UMass Lowell Extension Project?
No.
'Cause that might be a resource too.
Yeah, there's tons of resources. Dave, do you have a suggestion? I mean, there's
No,
lots of ways to go about
that's
this.
why I asked you, what is a
Yeah.
tree master plan?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I'd like to understand what the scope of something like, is it that big, or is it that big? Is it just trees on town
Tree-
property? Is it,
Right.
what is that, the scope can be anything anybody wants it to be, right? I mean, there are half a dozen decent residential tree policies around Greater Boston. Concord has one, Lexington has one. I don't think that's what you're talking about, though.
No, I'm
But
thinking.
those are
yeah.
pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
but that's not what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
So
what
I don't,
right. I mean, really what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking of climate resiliency and adaptation and habitat, and trees control stormwater and they control heat islands. So one thing we're putting in this proposal that we are doing with the outside consultant is a heat island analysis of town, which you probably don't really need. You could probably figure it out ourselves. But there's probably lots of places in town where a few big old trees making shade would actually have an impact on rising temperatures. Same with stormwater. I mean, trees soak up more stormwater than I think most of us realize. So when we're approving something along the wetlands or the buffer, you know, it would be helpful to have a little bit more understanding of types of trees and how good they really are. And
So,
Yeah.
so Peter, I assume that the MVP grant application specifically details the scope of the tree component of the sustainability plan?
well, yeah, thank you, David. That was the original thought a couple of weeks ago, and we're having a phone call once a week with the outside consultant. Proposals aren't due for a month.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that I can give something more definitive to this group.
So the proposal's
soon.
still being drafted?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
But I think the tree stuff is kind of not falling by the wayside. It does fit into low-impact development guidance, you know, shrubs and trees and native plants, but it's not quite as much as I just outlined.
who's taking the lead on this?
Me and Weston and Sampson
Okay, you as a private citizen, not,
and Evan Belansky. Yeah, well, I'm doing it through the,
it's not, you don't envision conservation leading this?
no.
Okay.
I'm viewing it more through
Tree
the,
committee.
I mean, I'm also on the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, so we can put it under that bucket.
That's more appropriate than the tree committee.
Although, as Carl and Peter well know, we are working on the open space and recreation plan, and I think the consensus is now rather than just complete the update, which would then be expired in 2 years, going to work on a new 7-year plan. And I think certainly to include some of these ideas about trees in the open space and recreation plan, I think is certainly appropriate. And Peter, thank you for sending me the information about Lexington's and Arlington's OSRP, what they have in there with climate change.
Yes.
I think that's something we should definitely consider
I would,
including.
I would thank the town for sending me to the MACC training where I heard those people speak.
So Peter, at this point, I mean, you're just kind of giving us a little update of where
Yeah.
things are, and
Yeah.
there's no action that we need to do?
No action.
From here, okay.
No action. My hope is that at our next meeting, I could give you a quick outline of what the draft proposal
Alright.
looks like, so y'all can comment or
Alright.
add ideas. I'm
Okay.
trying to collect ideas.
So next meeting, then we'll have some sort of draft that we can maybe take a look at, get some input. All
Simple
right.
answer.
All right, good.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Peter. All right, moving on then, land management. Carl, over to you.
So, Dave, I was pretty sure that you had sent an email
There's more to
to
that
Chris Alphen on the CR,
Chat off.
and I couldn't find the email, so,
Did you get it, David?
Get what? Sorry.
The letter I sent to Chris Alpin saying,
Yes.
move ahead?
Kind of what-
yeah, I'm
All right,
just,
I'll get it to
I
you.
just couldn't find it, but,
But we haven't heard a thing from
No,
him since.
but we won't.
We won't.
Yeah.
So I'll have to harass him.
Well, and again, I'm going to request that he CC me on those communications, so.
we believe we're ready to submit the CR. It's sitting with town council, Chris Alphen works at the firm. And so we're ready to submit, but I plan to, or we plan to present it to the select board, but we should present it here as well, so.
Yeah.
Probably we ought to put it on the agenda for the next meeting to just
We
give
ought
a
to
summary
We ought to take a vote
to say
to
that. Yeah,
submit it.
right.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so technically, it's the select board who is submitting the CR. They
Right.
asked us to put it all together, but it's under their name, so we have to have them do it. But I think they would want to hear that we all agree on it before they review it.
Yeah.
So the sequence would be that we should probably review it at our next meeting. And then once we review it at the next meeting, and assuming we're all okay with it, then we would schedule a review with the select board. And then if they say that they're good with it, then we would push the button and submit it to the state.
How long does the state take for these things. I remember back that I used to hear it took like, seemed for years.
Yeah, it's certainly probably going to be weeks to months, most likely months. They were not staffed for quite a while, and I believe they're now staffed, and they're working on catching up, but who knows? Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not on we wouldn't be on the priority list, because there are CRs in the queue that, I forget why, but they have higher priority based on,
Because they're getting grants
yeah,
that require
based on
CRs.
grants.
So, I don't think we're quite at the bottom, because this is required for CPA, but we're closer to the bottom than the top.
Are there any negative impacts of a long delay at the state level?
No, we just we continue operating the way we would normally,
Yeah.
and I suspect what we would probably want to do as a commission is operate under the general terms of the CR.
Right,
You know,
which we've been doing pretty much all along.
I mean, from a practical matter, I think the biggest administrative problem prior to getting state approval is that of the 28 to 30 permitted activities on the site, half of them require the land trust's okay to do them. And it might be difficult to run the reservation under that scenario, not having formal state approval, because there may be something in that document that the state doesn't agree with. So, but we'll figure that out.
Well, like the parking area is certainly already in.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, that's allowed by the CR, and don't see why the state should have a problem with
And
it.
it's already done.
That's right.
All right, so that's one thing on the CR. We are still moving forward on the granite sign.
So I have,
What's the update on that?
we've got a new company,
Nice.
and then I've
We
spoken.
get our money back from the other guys?
Not
Lawyers,
yet,
hopefully.
not yet.
We're
I-
going to
I
let town
wouldn't-
council and Paul
Yeah.
Cohen chase
You
it.
can represent us in small claims court.
We could, we'll go for
That's
trouble
probably,
damages and attorney's fees.
Who do you have for the new company?
it's a company called LeMaitre,
LeMasery.
LeMaitre, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Major, yeah, they've got a
Yeah.
good name.
And I've spoken to, I guess it's
He's
the
well-known.
owner,
Well, they're
gentleman named
well-known.
Steve. So, I sent him a mock-up of the sign, with the dimensions, the inscription we need engraved, a CPA inscription on the boulder that's out there. Haven't heard back from him yet as to a price. Say if I don't hear anything in the next couple days, I'll just send him a
Don't give them a
reminder.
deposit.
No,
I'll go see him tomorrow.
no.
Lesson learned.
know?
yes.
I don't know, Bill.
Okay.
I don't know you.
No, I know these guys.
But yeah.
You knew the other guy,
Not as long as I know these guys.
Are they
Take
good?
John with me. Yeah,
just as good as the other guy, right?
Okay,
No,
couldn't be any worse, I suppose.
they're good guys.
But yeah, no money up front. No money up front.
Nobody up front.
Take John with me. Right, John?
He
It
did.
does, they don't rush,
No.
just to let
No,
you
they don't
know.
rush.
They don't rush.
Okay.
They got a lot of work.
Well, the other guy
They don't
didn't.
need work, they have a lot.
Right.
Okay. Well,
They're
that's
very
good
honest,
to
though.
know.
They're very honest.
Okay, excellent.
Well, they probably
All
do.
right,
Some- they do a lot of business with DPW, so
Yeah.
that's why they recommend it.
So the other thing is that one of these days I will be coming before you with an RDA for invasive removal at Warren Pool, for working towards getting a lot of the invasives away from the stream bank. So that'll come, David's helping me work through that process, so that'll come. The next item on there is the Sudbury Valley trustees. So I met with Laura Matei, St. Patrick's Day, I guess it was, Friday the 17th. She's with the Sudbury Valley trustees. She had some good insights on the site. We went to Warren Pool, and she said it definitely has, so relative to the invasives, she said it kind of hit the bingo card for invasives on the site. It's got just all of the main categories. And her approach would be, and she does a lot of this for a lot of their Sudbury Valley sites, and they do training on invasive removal. And she said for this particular site, it might help to do a fair amount of just kind of cut, just keep
Hey,
cutting.
John, can you do your thing again, please?
Yeah, doing a lot of cutting and not.
There you go, thanks, John.
Not necessarily, try to pick, save the native and pick the invasive. She said, if you do that, you'd be there all day,
cut.
forever. Just cut, So anyway, she had some good ideas, so,
Good.
it was good to meet with her and to go
They're a
through
good
that.
organization. I've heard a lot of good things about those.
Yeah, so one of the things that came up, though, in that conversation is they're part of, and I think they kind of set it up, a thing called the Metro West Conservation Alliance, of which there's, 20 or so, either Concoms and/or land trusts and/or a few other organizations. And it's an alliance of these organizations for the purpose of sharing information, best practices, establishing a long-term conservation vision in their, what they would consider their span of towns. We're in that, but we're not signed up. So I would recommend that we sign up to be a member of that. Doesn't cost us anything.
What's it take to sign up?
I just send an email and say, or David does, and say, we want to be a member, and they say,
No
okay.
cost, there's no downside.
No.
Let's do it then.
So it just,
Wow.
yeah, but, they do things like weed
I think-
warrior training and things like that. They have a lot of different programs and practices, so it doesn't cost us anything, if everybody's okay with that. I don't know if
But
we
the
have to
day's
vote
one, as
on
long as it doesn't cost anything, why not?
Doesn't. I was told it doesn't. You just send an email and say it. So we want to be a Conservation Commission member of that. Is that,
I hear no objections.
okay, let's move on. The next thing on the list is bluebird houses. I'm just going to tell you that I have learned a lot about bluebird houses. We talked about having bluebird houses put on the Warren Pole site.
We have them in Red Wing Farm.
Yep, we have them in Red Wing Farm. There's a lot of work in maintaining and staying on top of and
Which we
monitoring
don't do.
well,
Unless she does.
she does it, yeah. But Giancarla Kalpas is the town bluebird lady. She's done 3,000 fledged 3,000 bluebirds in 30 years. She knows her
Wow.
stuff.
Holy cow.
I've met with her a couple times. She really knows her stuff. She was willing to help us, but she's not pushing it. And she said,
She's not a spring chicken either. I mean,
she's
Well, I was trying to be polite.
so,
I don't want to say she's old.
so anyway.
We're not getting younger
Yeah,
here
let's
either,
let's
Dave.
keep
Right, I
moving
can
here.
speak from
So
Experience.
the thought was to put some bluebird nesting houses on the site, but I stood there and watched. There's bluebirds there now. I've
Yeah.
seen them. And I don't think we need to put nesting houses on there. They get in, they would block the view. We have this $1 million view in a way, when you look out, and they'd be right there, right in the way. It would require a fair amount of maintenance and upkeep. And we're getting bluebirds already, so I'm of the opinion, and she's fine with that. She's not pushing it at all.
Okay.
The reason it's kind of coming is that the DPW has 5 houses they're looking to put somewhere.
Somewhere, well, maybe somewhere else then.
And so I'm gonna have to help
I
them
think
find
they have to be
somewhere
in
else.
They have to be pretty much in open space.
They have to be open
why-
space, it
that's
should
why
be
Red Wing
relatively
Farm was
cut,
so good,
yeah,
yeah.
it should be, it should be cut, should be public property, so it's a little bit unique, and the thing is that house sparrows will come in and kill the bluebirds, and if you don't monitor for that, you end up with just putting up houses for house sparrows. And that's what she is very good at, dispatching the house sparrows, let me put it this way, yes.
But
By
it's
hand.
complicated.
By hand, and.
By hand?
Yes,
Ooh.
yes, and she said, are you willing to do that? And I said, I'm not sure I am.
I'm not so sure as a conservation,
Yeah,
or I'd support that either.
yeah, so,
But the challenge,
well, house sparrows are non-native, and she said, once you see what they do to a bluebird and a bluebird baby, you can probably get yourself to do it, but she understands and agrees that it's not pleasant, so. Anyway, my point is, this has been discussed, this has come up, I'm ready to just move on and say, let's not do anything right now, maybe someday, maybe another place.
I think the commission's with you on that.
And then the last thing I have here is, Concom site visit for this Saturday, except I just looked and it looks like it's gonna rain, but Crooked Spring is the site that I'm proposing that we go to, do our normal, looking at the parking area, the sign, the kiosk, the trails. But this stormwater drainage that Dave mentioned, I think that's a really important thing for us to look at, is on the Graniteville Road end and on the, what I would call the lagoon end, which comes from Castlewood, and taking a look at that. And then the really interesting thing is that there is a new beaver dam there, or
No,
I
really?
should say what Dave Sperry told me is a beaver dam that's been there for years that has been rebuilt by a beaver recently.
Really?
And I've had my trail cam on there, and of course, as soon as I put the trail cam on, the beavers aren't there. But it's very fresh and very new, and it's massive. It's really something. So we can see where that is, get a close-up view of that. But, right now, I would like, we're trying to do it first Saturday of the month. We missed March, weather got in the way. The problem is, what I'm seeing right now in the forecast is it's going to be quite wet. So we could either just buck up and do it, or move it to Sunday, or put it off a week.
I can't make that one.
Which one, this week?
Saturday, yeah.
It's this Saturday.
This Saturday?
Sunday looks much nicer. I don't really care to me, Sunday morning.
I mean, Saturday's a bit of a problem for me. I'm supposed to be in Boston Saturday.
Want to do it Sunday?
I could do it Sunday.
Yeah, I can't, but whatever.
I'm gonna be watching my grandchildren in Hingham
Damn.
with my wife, and I
Try
can't go
Sunday.
home and tell my wife,
Bring them with you.
I can't go home and tell my wife that we can't go to Hingham, because I gotta do this.
We want to put it off 1 week to a Saturday
know.
the 8th, or?
Well, every Saturday, somebody's not gonna be able to make
Yeah,
it.
that's
Let's-
what I'm saying.
We oughta
Let's
try to
do-
keep
Let's
it
do
the same.
Sunday, though. Can we do Sunday?
Yeah, let's try to keep it the same time, yeah.
Yeah. Let's do Sunday at 9 o'clock at Crooked Spring in the parking lot. And that's all I got.
All right, so that takes us through land management. Agents report, oh, now we've got the commission accounts. Little,
Somebody can
financial
explain
accounting.
those schedules to me, I'll give them a raise.
Well, I'll try.
Can you like throw something up on the board?
Yeah, so I have up on the screen, can everyone see that?
No.
Read it? I can blow it up a little bit more if it needs to be.
But there, if anybody's got this, Dave did send them out, so.
So, the first thing that you need to learn with these reports is that when you see a negative sign, that's actually revenue.
That would have thrown me off, right? Dave, right?
And when you see a positive.
Accountants do
sign-
that all the time,
Yeah, I don't know why.
because it's a credit. That's why it's a minus.
Okay, well, I figured there must have been a good reason, but when there's no minus, that's an expenditure.
The minus is the credit.
So this right here
Debit is
is,
positive, okay.
is the total revenue to date, year to date. This is,
Fiscal year.
Of course, a fiscal year since last July 1st.
And that's just filing fees, right?
Filing fees and fees that applicants have paid for peer review.
The peer review's
So
rolled in
so
there too.
that's included in that.
How much of that would be the peer review portion versus the fees? Just curious. Do you know
Well,
offhand?
you can see here, this is what we've paid
Okay,
for peer
all right.
review so far. So, if you subtracted
Okay.
that from this number
About
up here.
9K was,
Approximately, yeah. That's what you get. So if you go down, next line, this 6,000 is an expense. That's actually then what was withdrawn from the account that goes toward my salary. And
so that
that's-
happens what, every year? It is a
Yes.
transfer over to help cover your
Yes,
salary?
Yes, that actually is on the warrant, every year, every town meeting.
When, Carl and I go to vote in spring, that's what we're voting for.
Carl's wife's gonna be a town meeting rep, and we got another vote.
Now we have 3 votes. Yeah.
I don't know, she said she's not going to vote with me.
Can't slip to the road?
So, this number here, so this is what was started out the fiscal year. This was the balance in the account. And this number right here is actually then the net revenue. If you subtract from this number up here, if you subtract what was paid for contracted services and then what was withdrawn, that's what this number here, this is the net revenue to date. So if you add this number here to this number, you should get the current balance in the account, which, I don't know whether I have to go over a little bit for that. Yes, if you go over here, so this is the current balance, the current net balance in the account, which is actually a 4% increase so far.
So
over-
87,000 roughly.
Right, that's the net balance in the wetland filing fee account.
And that does carry over from year to year?
That does carry over, yes.
Good.
That is not an annual appropriation, it's what's called a special revenue account.
And we can tap into that for pretty much any type of
Wetland.
wetlands type?
It has-
Regulations, right?
Right, it has to be for administration and enforcement of the Wetland Protection Act and the town bylaw.
So
Those
it
are
couldn't
the
be for
only-
open space.
Correct, could not be for open space.
Not open space, wetlands, okay.
Right.
At one time, Dave, we gave half of that to the town. Is that still the case or not?
No, well,
We get a-
it's
well,
six.
that was a misunderstanding. We thought we gave half to the town.
Well, maybe, and I don't know how that was rectified, but now it's just 6,000. I mean, in theory, the commission really should vote to approve that expenditure. That's really what the regulations say. I
Well, that's
know
what we should do.
hasn't been done,
We
but
should probably do it before town meeting then.
yeah, it should be
Right.
formalized. So when is town meeting?
April.
April.
End of April.
27?
So if you put it on the next.
So
agenda.
I can do that.
Yeah, let's vote then.
I can put it on the agenda.
This-
So,
The schedule you attached to the agenda that you mailed out, that's not that schedule, right? Or is it?
it's one of them.
There's only one schedule attached to the agenda.
Oh, there should have been two. There should have been
I've
two.
only got one. When
But
I
I'll bring up, I'm sorry about that, I'll bring up the next one after this. So that's the wetland filing fee account. This is also the land maintenance fund account is included in this activity report. It's a little bit hard to manipulate here. No, it's not working. There we go. So up here, this line is the land maintenance fund, so this is contributions. This, as of this report, this was a $200 contribution from one of the mountain biking clubs that uses Russell Mill Pond. I think this was Ride Like a Ninja.
Oh.
We also get one
ride
from,
like a ninja.
we also get one from,
Catchy, huh?
member.
Okay.
So this,
That must offend somebody someplace.
what's that?
That must offend somebody someplace.
Probably, yeah, I'm sure, but, so this number right here, that's actually an expense. That was what, we actually used that to pay for some tree removal at Warren Pole back last summer.
Yep.
That's what that expense is. So again, this is one of those accounts that carries over fiscal years. So this was the balance in the account starting on last July 1st. This was the so these are the net expenditures. If you take this expenditure and you add to it this 200, that's what that 2607 is. So I'm looking for the balance in the account.
I found the other schedule, David.
Is it that 92?
That's that 92 is actually the total in both the land maintenance and the filing fee account.
Oh.
So that's the total in these special revenue accounts that the commission has control over. But it gives some, if I can move this over, why don't I just zoom out. So this right here, this is the current net balance in the land maintenance fund.
Oh, okay.
So if you add that to the 87 and whatever in the filing fee account,
Get the 93.
that's
Like-
how you end up
Like
with the total.
land maintenance, we could use that for cutting trees down and,
Yep,
Maintenance of trails and
any
stuff
sort
like
of
that?
maintenance or like habitat studies on.
invasive type
and-
stuff,
Yep.
going after some of the invasives on the reservations.
Yep,
And, but at the same time, we're working, we have Oxbow coming to do some work, right?
Yep.
So is some of that earmarked for Oxbow?
I think first of all, on Oxbow, it's right. We're getting,
right,
we're
I'm
getting
sorry.
it from the trust
Right
fund.
trust, yeah.
And I think on Warren, the work that Oxbow's doing on Warren Pole, I think the plan was to go to CPC
Okay.
for that money. We certainly could, if
Okay.
we're trying to conserve this, though.
Okay.
Are we required to keep any certain money in there, a certain budget
No.
or nothing?
No.
No, but we do get a fair amount of stuff that comes up, like tree stuff and,
Yeah. I mean, we could, as Carl, you know, we had talked a little bit about, I had talked with Darlene about doing a transfer directly from the CPA account to the land maintenance fund. She had some concerns about that.
yeah.
But another possibility would be to go to town meeting and ask for an appropriation directly to the land maintenance fund. You know, that's another possibility.
Yeah,
in
actually, but I
addition
think
to-
what she was saying was, we just have to go to CPC, and that can be voted there.
The expense can be voted.
Yeah. It
Yes,
doesn't- And it
yeah.
doesn't have to go to town meeting, so.
Carl, you're our representative at CPC right now, right?
Right.
I thought we were gonna put John or Peter on it, because they're the rookies. Give Carl a break.
We could.
It's a lot of heavy lifting, it's twice a year or whatever.
You don't think they could, yeah.
Now, I don't know what this is right here. Dave, you had mentioned
So that's a park
The
that's
Dawn
behind
and-
behind the Dalton Road School.
No, the Westlands.
Westlands, behind the Westland School.
was that conservation land? that
No.
park?
No, it's town land.
It's it's a playground. A young girl was killed over in the Westlands in an automobile accident 25 years ago, maybe.
Oh,
And they named a park on
There's a gazebo there, isn't there?
gazebo
Yeah.
after her, and then cost takes care of it, at least they have.
Okay,
So I don't know where the money came, is that in our account?
yeah, this is shown to be one of the commission's accounts.
How much money?
zero.
None.
I was gonna say, it looked like zero.
Do you know, can you see when the last activity was on it, or?
I can ask. Certainly, that was before my time.
Yeah, no, that's,
And I don't know whether the commission still wants this account to be under its control.
probably not.
I mean, if there
I
was,
suspect when it was created the first time, somebody came to us looking for some money.
probably. Or gave the commission some money.
Once or twice a year, cost will have some report in Facebook about what the cleanup activity, they're pretty much limited to cleanup.
Yeah.
But they
twice a
must be,
year or
they must be spending their own money,
Yeah,
if
Yeah.
they're spending any money.
Yeah, and that's a contribution fund, so.
Okay, maybe the first thing to do is just inquire about the history of this account.
Yeah.
Paul might know something.
So those are the budget appropriation, that's voted every year at town meeting, which has some additional accounts.
Yeah,
So,
we should vote to approve this every year, you know? Yeah.
so you can see here in speaking with Darlene, we can actually, like if you look at some of these, like this one, staff education. We spent 415% of what was appropriated, but that's okay because because it actually is coming out of the sum total of all of these appropriation accounts. So she says as long as that is not exceeded, there's no problem. So we actually have almost $2,000 still left to pay that we could use for any of these expenses. Darlene actually has said, though, well, if we're running out of money in some of these sub-accounts, maybe the commission should think about asking for more money at town meeting. Like, if staff education is going to be, this kind of an expense every year, maybe asking for, at the beginning of the year, more money to cover it. Same thing with reservation management supplies. We've used 81% of that, and I think we could easily expend the rest of that, because that can certainly be used on things like
Easy.
like signs and that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
One thing we're gonna be a little careful of, we don't spend any time reporting to the town what we've done. So we start asking for 40-50% increases in budget, it's a logical question to be asked, well, what are you doing with the money? Well, I mean, we certainly don't throw it away, but we don't really tell, if we're gonna start increasing our operating budget significantly and doing more things, we ought to consider an annual letter to the residents.
Does the commission have a section in the annual report, the town annual report?
Yeah, just the way
do.
everybody else does, but
Yeah.
historically, it's been based on regulatory filings,
Yeah.
things like
Yeah,
that.
so many RDAs, so many NOIs,
I see.
Very,
type of
almost
thing.
no discussion of open space.
Well, that could certainly be,
That could be
added to
approved.
it.
Yeah, we should add to
Most,
that.
most town department reports are one page and no longer, and half the page is a picture of our smiling faces.
Hey, we got our picture taken this year yet?
Not yet.
Vivian did it last year, right? She wa-
did.
She wasn't in the picture because she took it. So our budget,
Photobomb
our
selfie.
budget is $7,565, is that what that says?
Total conservation, yeah, I mean, you would add up all of these. So, yeah, that looks like that.
So that's the number the town meeting would have approved?
Yeah, that looks like the
Okay.
total appropriation, original appropriation.
And,
Yeah.
and so far, we've only spent 5,600
Yep,
with 3 months left?
yep.
Okay. I'm not gonna spend the night trying to figure this out, I never could.
Well, I hope this helps.
And then what happens if we don't spend it? Does that
Goes
That
to-
goes-
fund go back to the general fund then?
Goes to free
Yep,
cash.
that goes away, and in theory, we get the same amount next year, but it really should all be spent down,
I mean, the people that I know that worked in government always said you should spend down
That's right,
your budget, otherwise you won't get it again.
that's right.
The
You
following
don't need
year.
it. You don't spend it, they'll look at it and say you don't need it, right?
Exactly, they'll cut you down.
I've got stuff to buy. Give me a month.
So we got what, $2,000 left?
Yep.
We should spend that then between now and the end of
think
the
we should-
fiscal year.
I think we should buy a tractor for Warren Poll.
Tractor, well, we got Mr. Tractor over here.
Boy, Dave, why doesn't your salary show up against the $7,500?
Serious.
Well, it shows up in another portion of the annual appropriation. I just haven't put it up on screen.
Don't get me, I was on this committee for about 6 months, and I spent my whole life on numbers, and I could never understand the accounts of the town.
But yeah, I would definitely say if people have ideas about how to spend this remaining amount in the budget, definitely let me know.
Where's the $5,000 for Warren Poll that was approved last year?
Well, I think that was all spent.
I know, but shouldn't it be
Well, I think
in one of
that's,
the, one of either the first or second
Well, I think
column on the left?
yeah, I think it's this one right here.
There's,
I mean,
Reservation management?
yeah, I mean,
5,000?
it's not necessarily restricted to Warren Poll, but I think
That's why it
that's
was
pretty
approved
much
as
how it's
Warren
worked
Poll.
out.
It was approved as Warren Poll.
That was last year.
That was the first time.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll
I
keep
mean,
it.
I think it's good to look at the numbers. We probably should do it at least twice a year.
Okay.
And is there a limit? Like, what's the scope of, what can we spend it on? Is there a list somewhere?
You can spend it on what's listed here.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Staff education,
I mean, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if you're looking like, say, the reservation management supplies,
Yep.
that's sort of any sort of material supplies that are needed for just that, reservation management. You know, things like signs, bird houses,
And they don't separate it between regulatory and land management, which might make it easier to manage.
So get Oxbow to look at another property
yep,
or something?
yep.
By, what, June 1st, is it?
June
The fiscal?
30th, right?
Yeah, that's.
Let's not go looking for things to spend money on.
No.
Well, so, and actually, I should have brought this up, I was remiss in not bringing this up earlier with regard to what I was proposing for Oxbow, is what account it could come out of. It could come out of this account, or it could come out of the land maintenance fund. Couldn't come out of them with a wetland filing fee. So that's definitely something to think about as well. I think maybe coming out of this account.
But it's like a cash accounting, so it's gotta be spent. It's not like an accrual type thing.
It's not like a what?
It's not an accrual expense,
Yes,
it's gonna be,
at year end, there's some accruals.
Well, there's something called an encumbrance,
yeah.
where if it's not actually spent by the end of the year, it can be encumbered into the next year.
The invoice is in hand, but it
Right,
hasn't been paid.
Right, we
Okay.
need the
So
invoice.
you have to have an invoice in hand.
Yes, right.
All right,
So it doesn't automatically go away quite at the end of the fiscal year.
all right. Well, good, this is good. Do this again. All right, so that's our update on commission accounts. Do we have anything we have to sign here for approval? Any signatures?
No, the request for the extension was withdrawn because it turned out that order of petitions actually doesn't expire until a year from now.
Okay.
You're the man.
Where is it? Second Lane,
Yeah,
out by Hart Pond?
yeah.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so I think we might be ready for adjournment, right? Motion to adjourn?
Move.
All right, Bill. Motion to adjourn.
We're not used to this. We didn't know what to say.
It's 8:29, then we have the motion in front of us. All those in favor
Aye.
of adjournment? Aye. Unanimous. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting's ended. Good night.